You can go as far as China and find poor people. Or you can go to Guatemala and find the second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. You need go no further in time than this moment, or as far back in history as there has been a history, because there have always been poor people. And there has always been work to do, such as the work that this mission team did. Did they change the world? No. We woke up this morning and there are still poor people. But they planted seeds. They planted seeds in Guatemala that they have no idea how they may blossom and grow. They planted seeds in their own hearts, and we don't know how they will blossom and grow. Jesus said, the kingdom is within you. It is here and it is now. Every moment that you can avail it for yourself. Listen this morning as 4 people share what it means to live in the kingdom of God.
We have our technical wizards here. All right, Jenny, I'll let you work with it, but meanwhile, for the audience out here, you just kind of envision, like we had to do in the old days when we listened to radio, you had a visual concept, but you had to imagine in your mind what was going on. So let me start out. I've got my cheat sheet here, but I start out by saying, Hola, buenos dias, me llama Juan. Pretty good, huh? Cindy DeVito would be proud of me. She and Rich are not here today, they're in California. I was not her best student, but get by. Let me start out by saying that, and I'll stream by days if you'll kind of follow along. Yeah. Early on January 24th, I'm talking about very early on a cold day, the gang of 14, four men, 10 women from our congregation, headed to Guatemala to make a difference. It's the name of our shirt and our theme for the whole process and the trip that we made. One of the differences we were going to make in Guatemala, among the various activities that we were involved with, was to build a structure. They would call it a home there. Here we would call it a shed. I doubt very much that that would even pass inspection here in the city of Brookfield. But to them it was going to be something great. As Kathy Benjamin had mentioned, Kathleen had mentioned, it's a very poor country. They've gone through 36 years of civil war. And just within the last 6 years, they're trying to get back on their feet. Many people living in houses, what we would call a house, or what they would call a house, that's a one-room shack, surrounded by corrugated steel, covered by corrugated steel. In some cases, the walls were made of bamboo. Fast forward, in Guatemala, there was a family waiting for us. And you saw that on your bulletin, what the family looked like. I think the daughter was not there, but the parents were roughly about 30-some years old. The youngest son was 2, another son is 6, and the daughter at 12. They had put in their sweat equity, and they were waiting to have a home built for them. Also, within the Common Hope grounds, and we had a couple of acres of ground there. It's quite a site, and I hope somebody will get into that a little bit more, but In the back portion of it, we had a construction site, and that's where we did our work. Starting Monday, we did not get into the construction phase because we had various other activities we needed to take care of. But starting Monday afternoon, we went to it, and we started building some frames. We're going to be used in the structure. And the most important thing that we did was load the truck. And Jenny, I don't know if you're to that point or if you've covered it at this point in time. Now you see that truck, small flatbed. If you were to drive down the city of Brookfield in that truck, I guarantee you would have all kinds of lights shining behind you. And we rode in trucks, and I think Jenny's got pictures. That's how we got to the building site, all right? And we were and the truck was loaded with the building material, the whole house on this truck. We followed in a pickup behind that, and I'm thinking, that thing is going to come down, and we're going to be in trouble. But it did make it. We got to the construction site, which is about 15 minutes away, and unloaded it, and got ready for the next day. And then the fun began. Tuesday, we started to pour the cement. And you talk about some hard labor. This was hand done. We didn't have a cement truck pull up. We didn't have a electric cement mixer. We did it by hand. Basically, the gravel was there, the sand was there, the cement we had delivered. And we poured it into a big pile, took water from a 55-gallon drum, and poured it around the cement, let it sit for a while, and then began to spread it. And it took a lot of work, and I'm telling you that we all slept very good that night as a result of doing this work. The crew that we work with in Guatemala, a fellow by the name of Pedro, we're going to see a picture of him, Felix, and Mario. Mario was our foreman, if you will. He was from Canada, could speak French, could speak English, and was our interpreter in Spanish. Very good at speaking Spanish. Once that cement was finished, and once again it was a hard day work, and let me back up a little bit, telling you how we broke up our 14 people. We scheduled each day, and there were various activities going on every day. And when we were working the construction, we would have from 3 to 6 people working that day on the construction program. From Monday afternoon all the way through Friday morning, we were filled with construction work for half-day sessions. And you could opt to work for half a day, full day. I was kind of stubborn in my approach to how I wanted to do this, so I worked every day on a construction, much to the consternation of the schedulers that we were working with. Once again, half a day, then we had an hour and a half for lunch, and a little time for siesta, which for an old guy like me, that was heaven. So once again, concrete was poured. Wednesday we went back to the construction site and we built more framing. These were roughly 4x8 frames. We pounded put the framework in with the 2x4s and covered it what we would consider hardy board or cement board. It wasn't exactly the same, but that's the material that they used. And once again we formed those and pounded the nails into that cement board and attached them to the framing. Now Thursday was the big day. It's all the day we waited for. And in the back of my mind, and I'm sure the rest of our team, we were wondering how in the world are we going to ever get this thing put together in one day. We're talking about a whole house, shed, 12 by 24 would be the size of it. Well, we started out and we started getting the walls up, and I think Jenny's got some excellent pictures of that, putting the walls up. Cement had cured, pins were in the cement, and holes were dug, were drilled into the frames, and we formed the walls, put them up, and put the trusses up, pounded all we had to, the fascia and everything onto that, and then the crew we had, Pedro, Felix, were up on the roof putting the roof in after the trusses were in place. The Guatemala crew didn't want us gringos on top of the roof because they didn't want that liability of falling off the roof. Lo and behold, we did get it together in one day, much to my amazement. A lot of work, but a sense of accomplishment. As we went into Friday, once again in the morning, we did some work. They kept us busy as far as the construction project in Guatemala. There were three of us left, Bob, Boris, Jenny, and myself. We poured more concrete, mixed more concrete, because we made blocks for future projects that were being built. Many of these homes don't have a permanent cement fixture or floor. They use blocks, they put them down, and if they ever need to move the house, they could pick up the blocks and go. But we were responsible for doing that. And I'll tell you, I was quite surprised. Jenny was just mixing the cement, and if her children are here, I guarantee you, she set a model for them to try to achieve as far as the work ethic. And Bob became a brick mason as a result, a cement mason as a result of smoothing out the cement. A lot of good work that day. That was on Friday morning. And then Friday afternoon, we had the dedication and the blessing for the structure we had built. And I can't tell you the feeling of warmth that we had as a result of finishing that structure and the warmth of the family of receiving that home. Just a little side note, from Thursday to Friday that night, they had moved into the house, had painted a couple of walls, and run some electricity. When I say run, use some license for that, running electricity, or electric wires that came across that, believe me, would not, once again, pass code here in Brookfield. But they did it, and you see the joy in the faces of the kids realizing they're going to have their own room, which, once again, they had lived in a one-room shack with a third floor, and this was heaven. They were to move into the structure. For us, as part of Common Hope and our group of Making a Difference, I think we can all say that the joy we received out of pounding nails, putting up the structure, putting on the roof, and just seeing the family move in was worth the price of admission, as Kathy had mentioned. Knowing that that family is going to be living there for possibly a good another 20 years, and that we helped build that, it's really heartwarming. As a little epilogue to what it meant to me personally, and Barb, my wife, who went with me on the trip, as we came home, we landed about 12 o'clock on Saturday. A week later, there's a blizzard going on, and as Barb and I drove home, it took us about an hour to get home, but when we got home, you don't know the feeling of warmth, perhaps you do, of going into your house and realizing the castle we live in, and the blessing, and how thankful we are. But how thankful those people in Guatemala, the family that we built this structure for. One last note, in our house we've got a little plaque that really I paid attention to when I came down before the stairs where it's placed. It said it says, the placard, the most important things in life are not things. And that meant something to me. The most important things in life are not things. That means our houses, our cars, our personal possessions are just things. Amen.
I am going to tell you about the fact that 8 of us are sponsoring 5 children in Guatemala. Kurt Kresnar and Andrea Kresnar are sponsoring Kevin Robert, who will be turning 11 years old this month. He's one of 3 boys in a household headed by his grandparents. His mother lives with the family, but the father does not. The family is brand new to Common Hope, and Kevin had only registered with the organization for 3 weeks before gaining a sponsor. Kurt didn't select Kevin. Rather, he asked Heather of Common Hope to assign a child based upon Common Hope's own need-based criteria. In Kevin's case, Kurt believed it was their desire to keep him in school, as he's been #1 in his class since 1st grade. By having a sponsor, it's far more likely that he will continue with his studies and fulfill his potential, since it is common in Guatemala for children to drop out of school at age 12 when it's legal for them to go to work. John and Barb Wood are sponsoring Carlos, a 15-year-old student in 9th grade. His goal is to become a lawyer. Barb stated, during our visit to Guatemala, we realized that we could make a difference for one family that was committed to keeping their son in school. We visited Carlos at his home, and as we were about to leave, his mother, through an interpreter, tearfully spoke to us, saying, "Thank you, I cannot repay you for what you have done for our family." Kathy Benjamin is sponsoring Natalia, who is 9 years old and in 3rd grade. Natalia lives with a family, a single mom, 13-year-old sister, and grandparents. They live on a coffee farm in a house with corrugated steel walls, dirt floor, outhouse, and 1 bed, 1 locker, and 1 bicycle. Their income is $156 a month. Kathy indicates that it is her family who is sponsoring. She stated, "Every Christmas, I offer an opportunity to my children and grandchildren to think about the real meaning of Christmas and honor the work of Jesus here on earth. This year, the project I selected was Common Hope. I explained the sponsorship to the grandchildren. They sat with me at the computer. We read about the children we could sponsor, and they selected Natalia. Kathy said that during her visit with the family, Natalia brought out all her school notebooks for Kathy to see the work that she is doing in school year. So though this family has so little, Kathy could tell that they had worked hard to make their living space clean and tidy, warm and welcoming, with fresh flowers. Kate Bloomberg is sponsoring John, age 6. As Kate told us, "This Christmas I asked my kids to forego presents for me and to join me in sponsoring a child. They quickly agreed. Common Hope sent us profiles of 4 boys the same age as my youngest grandson. The family separated, looked at the boys, and unanimously chose Jonathan. His family income is less than $100 a month." Her 8 grandkids each wrote a note to Jonathan, translated with the help of Common Hope. Angela Groff came with her to visit the family. Angela read green eggs and ham in Spanish, and Jonathan and his sister let Kate hold their pet chicken. They said they had 2, but they had to eat 1. Introduced Kate to his uncles, who were tailors, and he showed her how he could use a sewing machine. Linda and I co-sponsor a child, Anna, along with a fellow Rotarian. We began our sponsorship in April of 2014, not knowing we would have a chance to see her so soon. Anna is 8 years old and lives with her parents and her brother and 2 sisters. Anna's father is a farmer. Their home is made of concrete block and a metal roof and a concrete floor. The home only has 1 room. There's 2 bunk beds and a double bed and a small desk with a Bible on it. They have no electricity, get water from a communal well, and use an outhouse. Their income is $78 a month. They were happy to see us, though the cast on Linda's foot gave them a start. Anna was quite proud of her 4 rabbits that they had as pets, though they were probably destined to go the way of the chickens. The last picture is Esteban and his family. Esteban was sponsored by the Elmbrook Rotary Club. He was sponsored because he graduated from high school last fall. That is the goal of each of us in sponsoring a child. While all of us had a chance to meet our sponsored child and experience the differences in their living conditions, the ability to sponsor a child does not mean you have to visit. It is the support we give to those children and families through our monthly donations to Common Hope that makes a difference. We will be happy to discuss the benefits of sponsoring a child through Common Hope with any of you. Thank you.
I'm here to talk about the schools that we came to visit, and as you can see in the picture, I'm standing against a wall that says Escuela, which means school in Spanish, and if you didn't know what that word meant, you probably didn't know you were at a school. It's very interesting traveling in the city. Everything is very walled off, and as you travel down, if you kind of look down the street, you can see, you'd have no idea you were at a school. We entered the gates, And when we finally arrived and got into the school, this is what their school looked like. Very different than most schools any of us have ever attended, or schools that are here in Brookfield. It kind of reminded us of a hotel, and it had doors to the outside. Their school building is simply 6 doors, 6 classrooms. Grades 1 through 3 were on the bottom, and 4, 5, 6 were at the top. It was very quiet when we arrived. All of the kids were in their classes learning, and we just got to kind of take a peek at the school and what it kind of looked like. The next slide, we are kind of up top looking down across from the classrooms. This was the principal's or office that they had, and the space in between there, that kind of served as a lot of things. They have no library, they have no computer lab, they don't have a cafeteria, well, this is what they use for a playground, but you'll notice there's no playground equipment or anything. It doesn't look like the playground that most of us think of at school. They did have a beautifully painted mural, and you will see the outline area. It's kind of a nice picture to see. This is where the children came from. This is the area that this school serviced. And it's empty right now. In the next slide, you're going to see me. This is a picture of the teacher of the classroom that we came in and taught with. 8 of us came. 4 of us were able to teach students, and then 4 of us came to just observe, and then we had Jenny, who was our photographer, which was wonderful, so we could show you these pictures. We prepared a green eggs and ham lesson. So we had green eggs and ham in Spanish that Kurt, Karen, Barb, and I practiced quite a few times, reading it together, listening to it on YouTube in Spanish so that we were able to do it properly. And then we made the green eggs and ham with white chocolate and an M&M when we got there, and bagged it all up with a little fruit roll-up that we had cut up to kind of look like the ham. So that's kind of what we had prepared as the snack for them. If you go to the next, these slides, it's kind of interesting to look at the classrooms. If you think about the classrooms that your kids are in, hey, couldn't help but always think of the classroom that I teach in. I mean, these classrooms are really just 4 walls. They have a few posters up, and a desk for the teacher. The desks for the kids look pretty different than things that we have here, but no classroom library, no computer, no technology, all the things that we have. I have extra tables in my classroom, extra space, a carpet for kids to sit down and gather when you read a book, and these classrooms are really very small, and they're jammed with kids. The behavior, I actually thought, it was quite different for me too. As soon as we walked in, I mean, they were quiet, they listened, and when you really think about the difference, these kids are in school, and it is a privilege for them. Because a lot of these kids, the kids that are in this area that aren't in school, they're picking coffee beans, so for them to have the luxury of being able to go to school, and some of them are sponsored, they are so happy and so excited to have the ability to go to school. It's very different than some kids that are in school that don't want to be there. So you can see different classes these are some of the younger grades that we ran around and observed. There's Rich with some of the kids. We had different stations and rotations, and the 4 of us that taught the green eggs and ham, we also had an activity to go with it. So I did a writing activity after reading the green eggs and ham. We had the snack activity, which was giving them the treats. We also had a math activity, so Barb had some eggs with some numbers, and they practiced some of their math skills. And then Kurt had a little art activity with a paper plate where the kids got to talk about what their favorite meal was, which was interesting, because it was obviously very different foods than what we're used to. Pepillon was one of their favorites, which was actually a meal we got to try, which was really neat. There is a universal language of recess, though. So the minute it turned 10 o'clock, the kids all knew it was recess time, and they all got up to go out. The interesting thing was that they had a snack outside at the recess, and the food was interesting. There were little frozen bags of juice, you can kind of see in the corner, and they had they seemed like large pork rinds, and then they put ketchup on it and ate it. So that it's interesting, the snacks they had, and the fact that they're eating outside of this area. It's all something very different. But when they were done with their snack, they ran around and had recess, and it didn't matter that they didn't have playground equipment. There were no balls, there were no frisbees. but they still ran around and had fun with each other and with us. We had a good time at recess as well. There's Kurt planting today and Kate. So we enjoyed that the children had the same love of outside running around with their friends just as they do here. They had that beautiful mural that we enjoyed, and a little stage where I think at times they do different discussions and performances. And photobombing apparently is universal as well. We were trying to get a picture of Jenny and someone wanted to jump in. And there's just a couple more pictures, and this was our group that came, the four of us that taught the lesson, and then Linda, Kathleen, Rich, and Cindy, who were observing some of the other classrooms. Thanks.
Morning, everybody. I had a butt dial, a hang-up butt dial last night about 8:30 from Kate Bloomberg. I called her back and she said, oh, I was trying to reach a real estate broker. I hung the phone up with you, but how's it going? How's the preparation for tomorrow going? And I said, I was upset about one thing. And she said, make sure you tell the congregation about it. And that's that. So far you've seen, I'm the fourth of four speakers on this topic. 3 of us are men. And it's so inappropriate. There were 10 women along, 4 men, but the real roots of this idea was born of the women in this congregation. The foundation that was laid for this trip was all the women of this congregation. The execution and most of the work in Guatemala was the women. And yeah, we rode their coattails. And so to have 3 of us up here is really, it skews not the meaning, but certainly the work that went into this. And so thank you all for putting all that work and making it so easy for the rest of us. And I'm talking about, I wasn't certain the subject, observing a life. I think by now everybody's got a fairly decent handle on Common Hope, what the mission is. The programs that they run, they're very worthwhile. These people are just experts in what they do. But they're also very good at taking outsiders, people that are visiting, people that are sponsors, that are supporting the organization with money, and introducing you to their programs so you understand fully what they're all about. I mean, they're actually brilliant at this. They get your hands dirty. John talked about that. You want to build something. You get that sense of actually accomplishing a task. It's also about education. They go out and they show you the community. They do everything they can to enlighten you about Guatemala and the people, the minds that live there. And what they really do a brilliant job of is breaking down barriers. There is a socioeconomic rift, as you can imagine, between Brookfield, Wisconsin and Antigua. It is huge. Culturally, same thing, a major rift. And yet they build a bridge across this. They take you into people's homes. They give you constant exposure. There's a humanizing element to what they do that just gives it an immediacy and a real relevancy. I mean, they are just very, very good at this. Some of the things they do, we've talked about this morning already. John started out with the house building. That's a pillar of everybody's activity there. And it is something that's tangible. It's very rewarding. And you get that sense of accomplishment. Very smart on their parts. Bob, I'm glad it was Bob doing this, not me. It's just the emotional element that goes into the sponsorship program. It's just overwhelming at times. And again, a real pillar of what they do, something that has resonance in everybody. Angela talking with the schools, that was also enlightening, and for me it was probably hands down the most fun I've had this year thus far, reading Green Eggs and Ham. So Angela, thank you for putting that together. It was brilliant. And Kathleen, a month ago, in one of her first sermons, she talked about a day in the life after our return. This is where groups of us would go out and we'd trail a family and see how they were working, what they did for a living, giving a real feeling for what's like in their footsteps. One of the major programs that we didn't discuss, they were social worker calls. They were unscheduled social worker calls where we would go out in pairs, 2 of us, with a social worker, get on a crowded bus, get off in the neighborhood, start walking through the neighborhood, knocking on doors. They have the addresses, and you would crash in on a family that is part of the Common Hope constituency. And this was, you'd be inside somebody's home, seeing the economic condition that they live within. And as an observer, you listen to the interchange between the social worker and the family. In one case that we had, Kate and I were out, it was just a single girl by herself. Another was a family. This family was just a proper nuclear family, what you'd expect, a father, mother, a couple of little boys. And you could feel hope in this household. You could feel that the program was really reaching them and that there was a reason to be optimistic about the mission. But we followed that one up with another family, a mother that was visibly ill, 3 little girls, and we learned later from the social worker that not only was there illness in the house, but that the alcoholic, abusive father was sequestered in the other room of the house so that he was shielded from us and us from him. There's also, some people had absurd experiences. Cindy DeVito and Bonnie Ilhart, if you had a chance, ask them about their time out with their social worker. It has snarling, snapping dogs and chickens that are exploding through windows as they sat talking. So, it's very, very odd. But they have all these programs put together, and it is to, again, create a bridge to the local people, and they are so effective at this. And Kathleen already mentioned that you don't have to go to Guatemala to try and do something or to find poverty. It's right here in Waukesha County, southeastern Wisconsin. You can sit in the pews here and do a wonderful job in serving your community. You can write checks. You can go out on our local mission trips and truly make a difference here and now. On one of our later evenings in the week, though, in Antigua, Kathleen led a discussion. So she had a bit of a reflection on the activities of the week, and she talked about casting seeds. And just that some seeds are going to fall on rock and never gain purchase. Others will drop into fertile soil, and they will. And what we saw in Guatemala, we all agreed that the country, Common Hope, the people that we were working with, this was fertile soil. The efforts and the money that we were putting into this certainly was taking root, and you could see it reflected in the people. They were truly appreciative of everything that went into it. But as true as that is a further reflection, you're coming back, if there's anybody that was casting seeds in this experience, it was Common Hope. And the 14 of us that went on this trip, we were the fertile soil. And speaking for myself, and you listen to everybody else this morning, we carried this back with us. It took root. Guatemalan people, certainly the Mayan people, the Common Hope mission, all this had resonance. We'll find out over the years if it was transformative for each of us, but I swear this is going to stay with me this week to the end of my days. This is a lifetime experience. And I would go back again tomorrow in a heartbeat. Only Andrea has dibs on the next one, so I have to wait my turn. And just for all of you that made this possible, that's the entire congregation, thank you. Because without your support, without the encouragement of this group of people, this activity doesn't happen. So thank you.
So we went to Guatemala, and we made tortillas poorly, and we built a house, and we walked the streets, and we talked to the people, and we saw, and we came home. Not your turn. We scattered our seed, let it grow and take root where it will. Amen.